Water is the absolute prerequisite of all living things. Pakistan is not committing any irregularity or violation of the treaty.
Is because if the treaty is not there, then we have no way of objecting to any of their plans for developing further projects as well. Welcome to another episode of Straight to the Facts, a Criterion Quarterly production in collaboration with Talking Sense. The world was on tenterhooks ever since the May 7th attacks on Pakistan by India. The actual conflict, however, did not begin on the 7th of May, but on the 24th of April, when a letter was sent by the Indian government stating that the Indus Waters Treaty will be held in abeyance with immediate effect. This hostile act is a tantamount to a declaration of war, as 90% of Pakistan's surface water depends on the Indus water basin, out of which 78% flows from across its frontiers. Pakistan's National Security Policy 2022-26 has therefore declared that unhindered access to our transboundary waters is a national security imperative. The ceasefire agreed upon by both sides on May 10th, therefore, does not imply that hostilities have abated. This will only be true once the Indians have reversed their unilateral and illegal decision to hold the IWT in abeyance. To discuss this matter in depth, we have with us today Ambassador Shafqat Kakakhel. He is a former ambassador of Pakistan who later served as Deputy Executive Director in the UN Environment Programme with the rank of UN Assistant Secretary General. He is currently Chairman of the Board of Governors of the Sustainable Development Policy Institute in Islamabad. So, sir, welcome to Straight to the Facts. Thank you so much for coming again to our program. As you are aware, I just went through the intro and it's strange times. We received a letter on the 24th from the Indian government saying that they have held the Waters Treaty in abeyance. Now, what do they mean by abeyance? Could you explain that, sir?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to say by way of a preface, if you like, that the recent Indian moves pertaining to the Indus Water Treaty gravely threaten an agreement that had taken 9 years to negotiate with the crucial help of the World Bank, which had devoted a full-time vice president to the task and had deployed virtually hundreds of technical experts in order to backstop the negotiations, which started in 1951-52 and culminated in the signing of the Indus Water Treaty.
In 1960.
It is a historic treaty because it was negotiated when international water law was in infancy. And it defined the rights of India and Pakistan to the water assets of the Indus Basin, which comprises 6 major and more than a dozen smaller rivers. India and Pakistan are the major riparians and beneficiaries, but I'd like to specifically mention that unlike India, which has access to the waters of 7 other river basins, the Indus River Basin is the only source of fresh water for now 240 or so million Pakistanis.
Okay.
So, by defining the respective rights and obligations of the two major riparians, the Indus Water Treaty put aside what could have been an extremely difficult problem. What was, until this agreement was signed, was an evidently intractable challenge. The treaty served both the parties very well, and it was also seen as a model for international agreements on the sharing of transboundary rivers. Nearly 40% of humankind people live in rivers or along the lakes which are shared by two or more countries. To discuss more recent events, you mentioned the letter that Mrs. Mukherjee sent on the 24th of April to her Pakistani counterpart, the Secretary of the Ministry of Water Resources. Actually, the story doesn't start on the 24th of April 2025. It actually started on the 25th of January 2023, when India formally proposed formal intergovernmental negotiations to amend and modify the Indus Water Treaty. Pakistan replied by saying that it was willing to consider all the issues, all the grievances that India might have in the framework of the Indus Commission, comprising two senior civil engineers who were assigned, or the commission is assigned, to oversee the implementation, the smooth implementation.
This is the permanent commission
the permanent Indus Commission.
Indus Commission.
That is, in fact, the first tier for resolving questions that either party might have.
Exactly.
India did not answer that, and now we have a new letter, and this actually represents a change in the reasons given by India for placing the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance, as they have put, because earlier, according to the Indian media, India had asked for renegotiating the Indus Water Treaty because of population and demographic changes, because of environmental issues, the problem of climate change, and the need for, on the part of India, to develop renewable sources of energy. You know, India is a major emitter of carbon dioxide and is under pressure from the international community to increase its share of renewable energy. But the letter of 24th April suggests that the main reason why India was placing the treaty in abeyance was the unfortunate, utterly condemnable attack on tourists, on civilian tourists in the tourist resort of Pahalgam. And it also reflects on the intentions of the Indian government, because the Indus Water Treaty had actually, among other things, One of the remarkable achievements of the Indus Water Treaty was that it had raised a firewall between political issues and water issues. So, as cynics would say, it had freed the two countries from the water issues so that they could focus on other antagonism. So, as you know, this letter indicated, Indian position has been evolving. Our secretary of the Ministry of Water Resources, has responded to the letter by reiterating Pakistan's wish and willingness to sit with India in the framework, in the framework that is available in the treaty, to resolve all the issues that India might have, and we take it from there.
Okay.
So that is basic. As far as the holding of a treaty in abeyance, the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties, 1962, does not recognize this phrase. This, I call it, I mentioned it, I called it, maybe it was in the Criterion article or elsewhere. It is a political rhetoric. It is not a legal doctrine. It is not a doctrine that is recognized by the Vienna Convention on the law of treaties. But as we might come later, I also feel that in a way, the use of the word holding in abeyance may be clever, because should India, and I hope India will, back out,
Okay.
then holding in abeyance, I mean, you put something away for a while and you pick it up again.
Okay.
Whereas the other term that international water law or law allows would have been suspended, to suspend the treaty. As the World Bank President Ajay Banga has stated in response to questions from everywhere about the role of the World Bank, he said categorically that the Indus Water Treaty either has to be abolished by mutual consent or it can be suspended. But I must quickly emphasize that when a country decides, when a party to an agreement decides to suspend the operation of a treaty, there are grounds for it. You can't, in a casual way, say, well, I have decided to suspend the operation of this treaty. You have to cite specifically, a material breach. An instance of material breach by a party before you can ask for suspension. And this letter from the 24th April letter actually cites Pakistan's reluctance to enter into negotiations as a material breach. This is an extraordinary contribution to international law. And I'm sure any legal tribunal, any legal process will reject this utterly illegal, unreasonable, and dangerous manner of dealing with a treaty. As I said, once again, I repeat, a treaty that concerns 300 million, maybe more, people in the Indus basin, and was indeed a template, a model, as one of the statements of our Foreign Office said. It was the gold standard in terms of international treaties on sharing of waters.
Thank you for explaining that to us. It was a little confusing understanding the abeyance part in the treaty. Uh, now, as far as now we take whatever is written in that letter, holding the treaty in abeyance. Now, if we go by that alone, how does that affect us in Pakistan if for that they mean suspension or if there is going to be a pause in the treaty? So, how would that affect Pakistan as far as the water flow is concerned, as far as the legal aspects are concerned? How would that affect us?
Yes. Uh, I would like to mention that in addition to asking for renegotiating the Indus Water Treaty, which, in my view, is unnecessary and uncalled for, India also in September or August 2024 notified Pakistan that it will not allow or it will not participate in the annual sessions of the Indus Commission until Pakistan agrees to renegotiate the treaty. Now, according to the treaty, India and Pakistan are the parties to the Indus Waters Treaty should meet at least once and more frequently if necessary. Now, if the meetings of the Commission are not held, there are specific consequences because, among other things, while the Commission is mandated to ensure the smooth implementation of all provisions of the treaty, for a number of reasons, since the end of 1970s, the main focus of the meetings of the Commission has been on the uses allowed to India of the waters of the western rivers, which were allotted formally to Pakistan. You know what? The 6 rivers of the Indus Basin, to which I made a reference, 6 major rivers, the negotiators, initially the World Bank tried to promote joint management of the entire basin by the 2 major riparians, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
So then they went for a second partition. Territories were partitioned in 1947, and rivers were partitioned or divided between India and Pakistan in 1960. The eastern rivers, Ravi, Sutlej, Beas, were given to India, and the western rivers, the Indus itself and Jhelum and Chenab, were given to Pakistan. So when we say the Pakistani rivers, these are the western rivers, and Indian rivers are the 3 eastern rivers, Ravi, Sutlej, Beas, which were actually one of the facts that people who deal with the Indus Water Treaty and who must be worried about the future is that before 1947, Pakistan used 64 million acre feet of the waters of the Indus Basin. India used less than 8.
Okay.
So the bulk of the water resources of the Indus Basin before partition were used for irrigating areas that became parts of the formed the territories of Pakistan.
Yeah.
But India insisted on taking over the 3 eastern rivers because it said we have to carry out agricultural activities in our part of Punjab, which had remained largely unirrigated during the Raj. We also want to take the water to Rajasthan and to other states, and this was the non-negotiable minimum. And eventually, Pakistan agreed, subject to certain safeguards, and India was allowed to have the eastern rivers unhindered access, unimpeded access, unqualified access. Pakistan was given the western rivers, but India was allowed to use small quantities of the waters of the western rivers for irrigation, for human consumption of people who lived in the areas, and generating hydropower. But according to very strict conditions to ensure that the water, after propelling the turbines for producing electricity, returned to the river. This was meant to provide security to Pakistan, that it will receive unhindered, uninterfered, nearly all of the assets of the western rivers.
Okay.
Now, as I said, for the past so many years, the Commission has done nothing but consider the Indian proposals for hydropower projects. And Pakistan, under the Indus Water Treaty, has the right to know and to get the designs of the Indian projects. And Pakistan occasionally raises objection. India has been given the impression that Pakistan has been obstructing the approval of Indian projects. This is not true. Had it been true, India would not have, which India has, built 26 hydropower.
They already have 26.
Already 26.
On the western rivers.
Yes. With a total capacity of 3,500 megawatts. Now it has, apparently, it has prioritized 8 large projects with an additional capacity of 5,000 megawatts. You know, one of the small lacuna, if you like, the small problems, if you like, with the Indus Water Treaty is that while it allows India to build run-of-the-river hydropower plants, it does not fix a number.
The number of plants they can have.
Of how many projects it can build.
And the 26 that they already have, is that their storage capacity in those plants, is that enough to affect Pakistan in a negative way?
No, because the total amount of water allowed to India for all uses is 3.6 million acre feet.
So they cannot exceed that.
Which is a very small part.
Okay.
If should India decide to change the small quantities of water needed for all the projects, if it is done in a special manner, in the sowing time, it can result in temporary disruption. And also there is the question of removing the silt from where the water is stored. We had recently an incident, but it was not as grave as the media made it out. So now if the commission is not held, or India has virtually paralyzed the Indus Water Treaty without saying so. On the one hand, I said holding in abeyance does not mean suspension, but on the other, the non-holding of the Indus Commission tantamount to paralyzing the Indus Water Treaty.
Exactly.
Because without the commission, the treaty is a bundle of paper.
So true. Yes, that's right. That's right.
Now, what are the implications for Pakistan?
Yeah.
The immediate implications are that Pakistan will no longer be able to scrutinize the designs of the Indian projects in order to ascertain that they conform to the very strict and clearly stated criteria, engineering criteria, which is contained in perhaps the lengthiest annexure of the Indus Water Treaty. You know, the treaty itself is 12 articles, which take 10 pages. The annexures, which give details of how the treaty will be implemented, is around 100 pages.
Okay.
And one of the lengthiest, one of the most elaborate annexures is the one which relates to the technical requirements that India must fulfill before it can establish a hydropower project. And should Pakistan find the design problematic, there are three ways of resolving the issues. In the first instance, you have the commission. If there are questions about the design, if the questions are not satisfactorily answered, they turn into differences. For the differences, the treaty provides the appointment of an eminent engineer civil engineer to resolve the technical issues pertaining to the hydropower plants or any other matter of the Indus Water Treaty. And this expert is called the neutral expert.
Okay.
In fact, the World Bank also established a trust fund. So they have a kitty. They have a small fund from where they can pay experts who are hired as neutral experts. Now, if the neutral expert cannot satisfactorily resolve the issue, or he or she says that there are legal issues which are not in my which are not my specialization, then the World Bank is called upon by both parties. The appointment of the neutral expert is with the consent of the two parties. The establishment of a court of arbitration under the International Court of Justice is also, the chair is nominated by the World Bank. The parties have to pay. So far, during the past so many years, we have used each one of the three methods. Bilateral was used for a major problem on a dam on the Chenab called Salal. It was resolved by the foreign secretaries of the two countries. And the question of Baglehar, which was the major project, was referred to a French engineer who served as neutral expert, Monsieur Lafayette. And the problem, which unfortunately has remained unresolved, Kishan Ganga, This is on the Jhelum
But that has been
River.
inaugurated.
It has been inaugurated, but Pakistan, what happened when um, the Court of Arbitration approved the building of the plant, it also asked for design changes.
Okay.
And India carried out, say, half of the changes and did not carry out the other half. And it is in order to complain about those and in order to ensure that India does not repeat the same engineering problems in future projects, and there is a project Ratle. So Pakistan asked that both the Kishan Ganga and Ratle, which is an 850 megawatt power project, that it should be decided by a court of arbitration. And that is what has angered India. India is upset. Why did Pakistan insist on a court of arbitration? India had asked for a neutral expert.
In fact, weren't both being utilized, a neutral expert and a.
Once upon a time.
Okay.
But now India says only the neutral expert will decide. Whereas Pakistan is asking for court of arbitration. Pakistan is not committing any irregularity or violation of the treaty. Both the neutral expert and the court of arbitration are provided for in the text of the Indus Water Treaty. But the Indian media has said Pakistan has been obstructionist. What I feel, and Daniel Hines was also saying, what India wants is to be allowed to be let free, to go on a feverish dam making spree.
For
And there are reports
yeah.
that India would turn Chenab into a dam valley.
For our viewers who are not aware of this, Ambassador Kakakhel just mentioned Daniel Haynes. This was basically I've gotten from one of the articles that Mr. Kakakhel wrote for Criterion Quarterly called the Indus River Basin Saga. It's on July-September 2023, where Ambassador Kakakhel writes about Professor Daniel Haynes, who there was a policy brief for the United States Institute for Peace on February 2023, way back. And in that he said, India might even be looking for an excuse to repudiate the Indus Waters Treaty and press on with upstream project development, willing to accept whatever reputational cost might follow. He then said, if India abrogates the treaty, Pakistani leaders could view it as a deliberate attempt to destroy their country. And then he adds on that discarding the treaty could harm India's international reputation. The BJP has consistently prioritized domestic politics over international opinion. So basically, he predicted what is happening right now, and this is in Ambassador Shafqat Kakakhel's article in Criterion Quarterly, which you can see on our website. So he's basically predicting.
He basically, unfortunately, predicted correctly.
And now that we have got this letter saying that they have held the treaty in abeyance, how does Pakistan counter this? How do they bring their case forward? Where do they bring it forward in the international
Yes.
arena?
But first of all, let me complete the story of the impact or consequences of India's moves against the treaty, which have made the treaty dysfunctional. India can There are factors that India must keep in view. If it decides to use water as a weapon against Pakistan, at present there will not be any immediate adverse impacts because India, even if it wishes, cannot divert or stop the supply or the flow of rivers. Rivers are very powerful phenomena. You can't turn a river away. You have to have the infrastructure. You have to have the canals system with headworks. You have to have tunnels, which India has done, but it took all those tunnels, like for Baglehar, and took years and years and hundreds of millions of dollars or rupees. We are also doing tunnels for some of our major hydropower projects. So for the absolute, for the present, India cannot hurt Pakistan by stopping or diverting water. But as I said,
could it make it unpredictable as far as the flow is concerned?
absolutely. The major reason I was coming to that, that the main problem that the making the treaty dysfunctional means for Pakistan, that our farmers, for whom the basin brings 90%, as you said, of the irrigation water, will not be relaxed, will not be, will keep worrying about the likely availability or otherwise of irrigation water. There is just that feeling of insecurity, and water is not an ordinary thing. It's the essential ingredient of life. Why there is life on this planet and not in the hundreds of planets in the universe is because those planets don't have water.
That's right.
Water is the absolute prerequisite of all living things, whether human, plants, animals. So India's paralysis of the Indus Water Treaty generates this feeling of insecurity. Now, we come to the equally important topic. What can Pakistan do?
So just before that, just one more thing. You had mentioned in your articles multiple times about climate change and about basically the change in environment, change in the flow of water, etc. And I believe one of the main benefits that Pakistan was getting or should have been getting from the treaty was sharing data and sharing information, especially from the upper riparian. So that would also affect us negatively now as well.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that. This is Article 6
Okay.
of the Indus Water Treaty, which obligates India to provide in real time data about the upstream river flows, about any flood trends
Coming this way.
as the river flows down. And India has been more or less, during the operation until this unfortunate move. India has been supplying data, which has been useful. Now, the suspension of the supply of data will definitely, on the face of it, create problems for us in terms of management of floods, management of also the supply of water, what the IRSA does in this river system authority in terms of apportioning the quantities of water among the provinces. Now, I have also heard, but I'm not a civil engineer, that perhaps now Pakistan will be able to get the information from satellites.
Okay.
But I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure. As far as I'm concerned, under the treaty, under the Article 6 of the treaty, India is obliged to provide in time information about the river flows, about in the three western rivers which win their flow, through Indian territory. I think the Indus not so much, but Chenab and Jhelum, the major flows go through the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So this will be a major worry for Pakistan, unless, as I said,
Satellites.
we can get the information from the satellites.
Okay.
As far as the measures or the institutions or the processes available to Pakistan
Yeah.
to get a reversal of the decision, they exist, but they are not too many, and they are not truly potent and effective. Now, Pakistan can, in fact, the first means of redressal of our grievance, which is the inoperation of the treaty, will be the treaty itself. Under Article 9, we can call upon India to consider reversing its decision in order to make the treaty work, or to appoint that we jointly request the World Bank to appoint a neutral expert to determine whether there is a need for international arbitration, for external arbitration in the differences of the two parties on the questions that have been bothering India. And that is one. The other is to get an opinion of the International Court of Justice. The International Court of Justice does provide opinions, but in that there is the problem of consent. If India does not agree, if India does not consent, the International Court of Justice may be reluctant to take up the issue. The third means of redressal available to Pakistan is the UN Security Council, which under the United Nations Charter is the principal body charged with the paramount question of maintaining international peace and security.
Yeah.
So Pakistan can say that by endangering the supply of water, which is a prerequisite for life, India's moves are threatening the lives of our people, and therefore the security and survival of the inhabitants of the citizens of Pakistan. So it will be a tough job, because one of the things I've been telling people that, look, both India and Pakistan are large and important countries.
That's true.
So other countries are reluctant to take measures which will please or displease one or the other. But the President of the Security Council, and I hope, should this recourse become necessary, I hope the President of the Security Council will call upon India to remove this major worry from for the people of Pakistan and ensure that in practical terms there is no disruption in the flow of the rivers, and so one hopes that that would deter the fear of getting a kind of reprimand from the president or a request which amounts to a reprimand would dissuade the Indians from taking this dispute too far.
Okay. So basically, if I understand correctly, at this particular time, with the abeyance of the treaty, considering the infrastructure that India has, the 26 projects, etc., has in these western rivers, they cannot actually disturb the flow as much as we fear that they can
Immediately,
immediately.
even intermediate. But in a longer term, say 7 to 10 to 15 years,
Okay.
should they decide,
We don't have the treaty, so we can't stop them. So the treaty is important.
because we want to hurt Pakistan,
Yeah.
instead of attacking through troops and aircraft, we will make life miserable by stopping
Yeah, the
or
water.
reducing the flow of water.
And that is because if the treaty is not there, then we have no way of objecting to any of their plans for developing further projects as well. Okay. And then in this whole scenario, just sort of wrapping up now, we are looking also at China, and China being the upper riparian for India as well. The Brahmaputra, I think, gets its water from China, Tibet. So there are ways that through various ways that we could pressurize India to come on the table and have a discussion. It doesn't make sense to keep this in abeyance for indefinite period of time for even India.
Yeah, this is the question that has been raised by analysts. But before I answer that, can I
Yes,
quickly
please.
address the arguments that India has given?
Yeah, please.
India talks about population demographics. Now, I don't know what are they aiming at. Are they aiming at getting more water? If the argument of population is meant to be converted into quantities of water, Pakistan has a bigger claim. You know, Indian population, since the treaty was signed, has tripled. Pakistan's has gone up by 4.5 times. So we have a much larger claim. You know, in 1950, Pakistan's per capita availability of water was 5,250. Today it has declined to less than 1,000 cubic meter per year, per person per year. The second argument that they forward is that environmental issues and the need for renewable. Now, water resource experts and environmentalists have been shouting from rooftops during the past 2 decades or so that, look, Pakistan and India being geographically contiguous, Pakistan and India sharing the glaciers, sharing the monsoons, and all, which the glaciers and the monsoons are the two major sources of fresh water for the Indus basin. So these two countries must talk and must work together on mitigating the adverse effects of climate change. But for dealing with climate change, you don't have to amend a treaty which is about the sharing of water. It is not about the development of renewable sources of energy. India and Pakistan must, I have been saying it, like scores of experts
That's right.
that India and Pakistan need to establish broad-based cooperation on a whole gamut of issues pertaining to the integrated management of resources, water resources. So the arguments that India has given in the Criterion article, I have debunked all those arguments as being
That's right.
fallacious, as being weightless, as being frivolous. So, what I hope, I would like to end this conversation by expressing the hope that with the help of friendly quarters, India will be able to reconsider its decision. Holding in abeyance that way is a better term than suspending.
That's true.
And hopefully, this rather awkward sounding phrase will help India to go back. India has placed itself in a situation that is indefensible. As far as the Brahma, now, indeed, like many other rivers, Tibet is the source of Brahmaputra, which accounts for almost 28-30% of India's water resources. And you're talking about the water resources of a country of continental size. But I don't think China is in the business of using water for extracting political concessions. So I wouldn't go to the extent. But what India risks is India is also a lower riparian for the 4 rivers which come from Nepal.
Interesting.
And India is the upper riparian for Pakistan and Bangladesh. So, by creating problems for the Indus Water Treaty, India is endangering its reputation in the region. Nobody in the region will trust the largest country of the region. So, if India claims to be the regional hegemon, the regional power, it must look after the smaller neighbors, it must look after their sensibilities, and it must not create an atmosphere where the neighbors live in fear of the big neighbor.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you, and we learned so much. There are so many ways of looking at this particular issue, and you have given us the most positive way to look at it. Thank you
Always a
so much.
pleasure to be
Thank you so much for coming to Straight to
you.
the Facts. Thank you. Thank you.